of water that's exiting my bottom dam at Monati.
The day Southern Africa disappeared underwater. Right now, as we speak, entire cities are vanishing beneath murky floodwaters. Families are trapped on rooftops, desperately waving for helicopters that may never come. What started as seasonal rain has transformed into something far more sinister, a catastrophe that's rewriting the map of Southern Africa. This isn't about a single storm or one bad week of weather. This is about how nature just unleashed years' worth of rain in mere days, creating a disaster so massive that even veteran emergency responders are calling it unprecedented. The numbers alone are staggering, but the human stories behind them will leave you speechless. Let's start with Limpopo province, where the nightmare began. When residents went to bed in early January 2026, they expected typical summer showers. What they got instead was a meteorological monster that refused to leave. A low-pressure system, usually a temporary visitor, decided to park itself over southern Africa's interior. And it brought friends, massive amounts of tropical moisture that turned the sky into an endless waterfall. Within 48 hours, some areas received over 300 millimeters of rain. To put that in perspective, that's nearly half their annual rainfall dumped in just 2 days. The Limpopo, Levubu, and Letaba rivers didn't just overflow. They exploded from their banks like liquid bulldozers, demolishing everything in their path. The provincial government's declaration of a state of disaster barely captures the chaos unfolding on the ground. 24 people have already lost their lives, with many more still missing. Some were swept away by currents moving faster than cars. Others were trapped when buildings collapsed under the weight of water and mud. In just one district, Vembe, over 1,500 families lost their homes in minutes. But here's where the story takes an even darker turn. Limpopo isn't just any province, it's South Africa's agricultural heartland, the country's citrus and vegetable basket. Thousands of hectares of crops now lie rotting underwater. Food prices across the entire nation are about to skyrocket, affecting millions who've never even seen these floods. The infrastructure damage reads like a war zone report. Over 40 bridges have either washed away completely or stand so damaged they're death traps waiting to happen. The N1 highway, imagine the main artery connecting South Africa to Zimbabwe and beyond, keeps closing due to massive sinkholes that appear without warning. Entire rural villages have been cut off from the outside world, unable to reach hospitals, schools, or even basic supplies. Power substations sit underwater, leaving thousands in darkness. Water treatment plants have been compromised, and health officials are racing against time to prevent cholera outbreaks. The provincial premier summed it up in words that chill. Our priority is the preservation of life. We are working around the clock to reach those still cut off by the waters. But Limpopo's tragedy was just the opening act. While rescue teams struggled there, nature was preparing an even more shocking scene hundreds of kilometers away in one of Africa's most famous landmarks. The Shingwedzi River in Kruger National Park had always been a gentle giant, a seasonal waterway that elephants crossed lazily and where tourists gathered to photograph hippos. That changed dramatically in mid-January when the same weather system that devastated Limpopo turned its attention to this wilderness paradise. 400 millimeters of rain fell in just 72 hours over the Shingwedzi catchment area. The transformation was instantaneous and terrifying. The river didn't just rise, it exploded upward, reaching 5 meters above the Shingwedzi Bridge. The famous crossing point simply vanished beneath churning brown water. At Shingwedzi Rest Camp, tourists woke to a nightmare scenario. Water was literally at their doorsteps and rising fast. Park rangers initiated emergency protocols as the camp's perimeter fence disappeared underwater. One senior ranger described the scene. The speed of the rising water was unprecedented. We had minutes, not hours, to act. What followed was a desperate race against time. 120 tourists and 40 staff members needed immediate evacuation. With roads severed by washouts and bridges invisible beneath torrents, the South African Air Force helicopters became the only lifeline. The dramatic airlift operation saw people plucked from rooftops and high ground as the water continued its relentless advance. The wildlife faced their own crisis. Hippos and crocodiles, normally masters of their aquatic domain, found themselves helplessly swept kilometers downstream into Mozambique. Smaller mammals and ground-nesting birds saw their entire habitats obliterated in hours. While ecologists note that floods are natural reset events for savanna ecosystems, the sheer intensity of this event has left even experienced conservationists stunned. The park's CEO captured the devastation. "We are devastated by the damage to Xingwedzi, a jewel of our northern circuit. The rivers are extremely dangerous right now." The northern Kruger, usually a haven of tranquility, had become a raging inland sea. Yet the water's appetite for destruction wasn't satisfied. As Limpopo drowned and Kruger transformed into an aquatic battlefield, Mpumalanga province, the place of the rising sun, was about to experience its darkest days. The same cut-off low-pressure system, now strengthened by moisture from the Indian Ocean, turned its full fury on Mpumalanga. The numbers defy belief. 450 millimeters of rain in less than 10 days, shattering every historical record for January. The Crocodile, Kamati, and Sabi rivers didn't just flood, they exceeded their 50-year flood levels, turning the landscape into vast inland seas. 18 more lives were lost in Mpumalanga, most in the Nkomazi municipality. The stories are heartbreaking. People swept away trying to cross bridges they'd used safely for decades. Families trapped when mudslides turned their homes into tombs. In Bushbuckridge and Mbombela, 2,000 more people joined the growing ranks of the displaced. A provincial spokesperson's words captured the human tragedy. "We are seeing families lose everything they have worked for in a matter of minutes. The scale of displacement is stretching our local resources to the limit." But Mpumalanga's strategic importance magnified the crisis. This province serves as the critical corridor for trade between South Africa and Mozambique's ports. The N4 toll route, vital for international commerce, faced repeated closures from rockfalls and flooding. Regional roads connecting towns became death traps of sinkholes and eroded tarmac. The economic ripple effects will be felt across the entire southern African region for years. Water pumping stations along riverbanks vanished beneath the floods, leaving municipalities without clean water. Power restoration became impossible as flooded terrain prevented technicians from reaching fallen infrastructure. The province that symbolized new beginnings, the rising sun, found itself plunged into darkness. And then came the final devastating act. All this water, from Limpopo, from Kruger, from Mpumalanga, had to go somewhere. That somewhere was Mozambique. Sitting at the downstream end of multiple river basins, Mozambique became the unwilling recipient of everyone else's excess water. But nature wasn't done being cruel. A tropical system over the Mozambique Channel added its own torrential contribution, 400 millimeters of rain in 96 hours over the Limpopo River basin. Making matters worse, upstream countries were forced to open dam sluice gates to prevent catastrophic dam failures. This sent walls of water racing down the Limpopo, Nkomati, and Umbuluzi rivers straight into Mozambique's heartland. The capital region faced immediate crisis as the Umbuluzi River flooded the Pequenos Libombos Dam area, threatening Maputo's primary water supply. Districts like Boan and Namaacha watched hundreds of homes disappear beneath muddy water. The city of Xai and the Limpopo floodplain saw forced evacuations as the river surpassed critical levels by over 2 meters. The human toll reached devastating proportions. 32 lives lost, 50,000 people affected, 15,000 seeking shelter in schools and government buildings. A Red Cross volunteer in Bone describes scenes that defy comprehension. People have lost their livestock, their crops, and their homes in a single night. We are struggling to provide enough clean water and sanitation to prevent a cholera outbreak. Climate scientists point to Mozambique's tragic geography, positioned to receive everyone's runoff while dealing with rising sea levels that prevent proper drainage. The triple threat pattern, heavy local rain, upstream runoff, and blocked ocean drainage, created a perfect storm of destruction. The immediate crisis continues even now. Weather systems show no signs of relenting, and flood crests haven't yet reached the coast. The worst may still be coming. Years of international cooperation will be needed to rebuild schools, clinics, and bridges swept away in days. Environmental experts see this as a glimpse into southern Africa's climate future. More frequent, more intense, more devastating floods as global patterns shift. The transition from El Niño to La Niña conditions historically brought increased rainfall, but nothing like this apocalyptic deluge. Recovery will take years, perhaps decades. While rain shows signs of easing in some western areas, saturated ground means flood risks remain extreme. The resilience of millions is being tested as they attempt to rebuild lives from landscapes transformed beyond recognition. This isn't just about statistics or infrastructure damage, it's about farmers watching generations of work vanish in minutes. It's about children separated from parents by raging torrents. It's about rangers risking their lives to save tourists and volunteers working without sleep to prevent disease outbreaks. The 2026 Southern African floods will be remembered as the moment nature showed its most terrifying face. When the waters finally recede, they'll leave behind more than just mud and debris. They'll leave questions about how prepared we really are for our changing world. That's it for today, folks. See you in the next video.